founded in 2009 as a reaction to the demonstration organised by Al-Majiran against the war in Afghanistan as the Royal Anglian Regiment marched through the town after a tourist duty in the Helmand province. The EDL, the English Defence League, was founded. It's headed, as you know, by Tommy Robinson. Now, having seen a number of his debates and interviews on TV, and what they stand for, what they purport to stand for. Many of the TV debates and the contributors in the TV debates said that Tommy Robinson was a racist, and they branded him a racist, and he didn't really have much of an opportunity to respond. So I decided then to catch up with him to find out a little bit more about him. Now, as you'll hear in the interview, while I concluded anyway that he's not a racist, he has decided, and the EDL have decided, to focus on the negative and the extreme actions of some Muslims, and then decided to deem that all Muslims, and indeed the religion, or as he says, it's not a religion, the ideology of Islam is completely like that and something that needs to be opposed. He seems to conclude that Islam is fine provided it behaves a little bit more like Christianity, which is kind of a strange stance to take. Anyway, it's his stance, so I thought fair enough, give him a chance to say what he has to say on the show. So here it is. This is Tommy Robinson from the EDL. Tommy Robinson from the EDL. Can you tell us what the English Defence League stands for?
We formed in support of our armed forces. We're fed up of watching an inability by our government to tackle Islamist extremism. There is also a two-tier policing system and a two-tier funding system. One where we treat non-Muslim community with iron fists and the Muslim community with kid gloves. It's as though we do have a master race in this country, and that has to end, and we will stand against it. And what we've been doing for 4 years now is highlighting different problems that come from the Islamist ideology and from the deep-rooted hate within the Quran. And whether it be terrorism, female genital mutilation, or Muslim grooming gangs, there's a vast range of problems that are coming, and we've been highlighting them for 4 years.
Okay, now, Tommy, would you not accept that those things that you've highlighted, in particular grooming, that there's no evidence of any of that in the Quran at all? So
Yes, there is. Actually, within the Quran, it says 14 times that Muslims can take non-Muslim women as sexual slaves. It clearly states that outside of their 4 wives, they can take anything their right arm possesses, which is non-Muslim sexual slaves. The Prophet Muhammad was 56 years old when he married a 6-year-old child called Aisha, and he was 59 years old, she was 89, when he consummated that marriage. And that, in modern term Britain, that's paedophilia. Now, Muslims who accept Sharia, the Sharia within their ideology, accept that it's okay to have sex with a child once they start their periods. Whether they be 10 years old, 9 years old, 11 years old, they're fair game. Now, that is an ideology that's inbred within them. Now, Muslims see our country as Al-Harab, which is house of war. Certain Muslims, not all Muslims, but a percentage of them do. Now, when at war, Muhammad clearly states to them in the Quran they can take non-Muslim sexual slaves. Now, that's what these men are doing. What we have to look at is the common denominator amongst all of these crimes and all the criminals doing it. And the fact that 85% of these people arrested for this grooming and convicted are Muslim men. We only have 5% of this country is Muslim. So why are 85% of the people convicted for it Muslim? We have to search for the reason why. Not just brush it under the carpet and pretend it, because you won't solve the problem. By saying like that, it's not Islamic, it's not Muslims. No, it is. This is an Islamic problem.
So you're not just against Islamic extremists. You're against the whole religion of Islam.
I'm against the Islamist ideology. I'm against Islam taking in a 7th century form. If you take that to the word, the extreme word of the Quran, yeah, I'm against it because it promotes hate and intolerance towards non-Muslims. I'm against that. Of course, I'm against it. I stand for freedom. I stand for human rights, and the Quran doesn't. Islam doesn't. So we've already had the European Court of Human Rights, and that not with all aspects of Sharia law, due to their view on homosexuals, their view on women, and their view on non-Muslims. So this is something that's already been outlawed.
Well, the view on homosexuals is not peculiar to Islam. That also exists in Judaism. It exists in Christianity.
There's a difference between promoting and saying that it's wrong and saying that they should be executed. There's a big difference.
Right.
Islam, they must be killed.
Okay, now you're focusing on a number of different points that you've discovered about Islam and the Quran. Now you're also ignoring certain other points as well, such as the giving of alms, the fasting at the time of Ramadan, how they support other members of the community.
The fasting at the time of Ramadan actually costs our country in excess of hundreds of millions of pounds due to diabetes. The percentage of diabetes in the Islamic is rocketing. They're having to set up special NHS centres within their community to deal with it due to their bad and diet and not eating for 16 hours during daylight. And the whole concept of Ramadan is flawed as well, because it's like, if Allah created this entire world and he didn't want you to eat when it's daylight, then what about in Russia, where it's daylight 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? What's the point in it? Because you'd be dead. So you'd die if you're not allowed to eat or drink. So, okay, we respect other people's faiths and what they want to do, but when it's costing our government and our taxpayers hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds every year, and the life expectancy of a Muslim in Britain is 59. It's very below average because of these sorts of health issues which come from that, as well as marrying their first cousins. There's many things that come from these problems. Now, all we're doing is pointing them out and saying that this is not right, which is not. Now, in the year 2013, we should not be encouraging 50% of the Muslims in Bradford to marry their first cousins and give high rates of disability. We should be denouncing. We should be saying it's wrong, saying that we should evolve with time. But that's the problem we've got. It's not evolved at all.
Right. When you say they're not evolved, then you're not accepting their faith. I mean, you've pointed out the negative aspects of their faith. There's a whole lot of positive aspects with their faith.
Charity, the way they are with their families. There are many positives. And of course, there are certain sections in the Ahmadiyya sect of Islam, completely peaceful. They have reformed their religion. There is no hate. They do tremendous work even for armed forces, which is why I do, when I give my speeches, whilst I am a strong critic of Islam, I go out my way to point out that I'm not against Muslims, because there are some amazing Muslims. So as of Islam that we see spreading in our country, as you will see in Ireland, you'll see Wahhabi and Salafi sects, which is funded by Saudi Arabia. Now, this is extreme. They're extreme sects. Right. And to be honest, they're not going to bring any good to this country.
Okay, so
we have to tackle them and really...
Yeah, so the base of what you're saying, Tommy, but the base of what you're saying is, as long as they behave in a fashion that's acceptable to you and in a good, quote-unquote, good Christian fashion, then it's acceptable. But then that's not allowing them to profess their faith. I mean, you're using terms like liberalism and democracy and so forth, but really it's an abuse of those terms, because you don't really accept them for who they are.
What we accept is that I don't see Islam as a religion. It's an ideology. Similar to Nazism and Islamism, the political wing of Islam, it's not just about praying, is it? It's got taxes, it's got law, it's got inheritance, it's a complete way of life. Now, that's not just me, the Italian government have come out and said the same, that they don't recognise it as a religion. So when we're talking about these religious freedoms and these religious rights, they should be exempt to religions. But if I stand up to Scientology and I criticise Scientology, no one's going to want to kill me, and no one's going to call me a racist. I actually have some fear for my life. I have to wear a bulletproof vest. Yeah. I've had 4 official Osman warnings from the British government, which have told me that I have to leave my hometown. I have to go into hiding because they want to kill me. We've had terrorists in prison recently for 20 years for planning to blow us up and murder us. Now we have to look at why they wanted to blow us up and murder us. It's because of the scripture in the Quran that tells them that they must kill anyone who criticises the Prophet Muhammad. Now, the Prophet, I don't want to insult all Muslims, but the Prophet Muhammad needs criticising. He was not like Jesus. He was not a peaceful man. He was far from it. He participated in murder, in rape, in genocide. Then this is not a religion of peace. I've done my studying, I've done my reading, I've done my research, and it's not peaceful. It never has been peaceful. In fact, we're 1,400 years.
Yeah. Well, I know a number of Muslims, and I know a number of Muslims who follow the Quran very closely, and they're very peaceful people. Now, in relation to the violence and aggression you've highlighted, there's a tremendous amount of violence and aggression against Muslims from Christian countries, from the United States, from Britain, in Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever you care to mention it. Muslims are under attack in Burma, in Sri Lanka. There's a tremendous amount of violence aimed at Muslim countries. There's attacks on Muslim countries. So is it not normal to expect that they'll respond with violence?
I'm against the war. First off, I think it's an illegal war. I think Tony Blair should be tried for war crimes. I'm completely against Afghanistan and Iraq, and I completely understand that when Muslims say how angry they are, that many innocent Muslims are dying. Yes, they are. But our forces swear allegiance to Queen. They don't, and they elected government choose the war that they go into, and they're out there trying to broker peace or taking down dictators. Now, it's a lose-lose situation, because at present, all the Muslims are crying out and begging us to go into Syria, in the same way they were crying out and begging us to go into Iraq and take out Saddam Hussein. But when they do, they'll all then be moaning when there's civil disorder across the whole country. And we have to look at the most Muslims in these countries, in Iraq, Afghanistan, all these countries, are blown up and murdered by each other because of Shia Sunni fractions. Because of And that's what's happening.
Well, yeah, Tommy, there's
last week there was 225 killed in Iraq from bombs outside mosques.
Yeah, there's
That's
a
not the
difference.
British forces.
Okay, there's a difference. There's a difference between begging and pleading with somebody to come in and help you to remove a dictator, and then once that dictator is gone, surely you would imagine that those people should leave and leave the country back to the people who it belongs to, and not to rape them of their resources. There's a big difference.
You're speaking to the converted on that issue. I believe we are in their country for their resources. I believe that the government have chose that. I believe that our politicians are greedy, wanting.
So is their anger not understandable then?
And I understand, but at the same time, when you look at, say, for example, Catholics in Nigeria, not this Christmas, last Christmas, on Christmas Day, 5 Catholic churches were blown to pieces by Boko Haram. Now, that doesn't. I feel that. I'm a Catholic. I feel that when I hear that, yeah, and my family feels it, and I feel for those Christians that's happened to. That doesn't make me want to go out and start beheading or planting bombs on Muslims.
Okay, Tommy, just to speak to you about the EDL itself. It's been said that the members of the EDL have threatened Guardian journalists. The Guardian did a documentary itself where some of the members of the EDL were caught on video shouting racist chants in the video itself. How do you respond to that?
Well, basically, that video was 3 years ago. We've gone a long way since 3 years. If you're asking me, are there racists in the EDL, I'm not going to lie to you. Of course there are.
Right.
Like, there's racists in the Metropolitan Police Force. It doesn't make it a racist police force. We've got golfers in the EDL. It also doesn't make it a golf society.
Right.
Like, there are racists in the EDL, and when we find them, we drive them out.
Okay.
I've had one of my convictions is for in this last 4 years is for knocking someone out at a demonstration who's given a Nazi salute.
Right.
I hate Nazis.
Okay.
I hate racists. I'm from one of the most multicultural towns in Europe.
Okay, all right.
My best mates are black, you know what I mean? My mother's Irish. My mum was an Irish immigrant too.
Okay, all right. And Tommy,
do what we can,
okay, just also the EDL itself, you don't keep a membership list. Why is that?
We have no membership list. It's just a voice and people join on the street. So I'll tell you what it is, mate, because I'm a working class lad. I was just 4 years ago, I was just going about working on a building site, living my life. And then this happened, which was when our soldiers were attacked. And I wanted to make a stand, and I haven't been groomed for this or educated in a way to be involved in politics. I've just took it on.
Okay, and just one last one for you, Tommy. Recently, Pamela Geller was refused entry to the UK to speak at one of your rallies. What do you think of that, and why would you invite somebody like that who's been very openly, verbally aggressive herself towards Muslims?
She hasn't been aggressive, actually. She's a very well-respected lady in America. She fights for freedom again. Now, if being overly aggressive is telling the truth about Islam, William Gladstone, our previous leader of this country, he said there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have the Quran. It's a violent and accursed book. Sir Winston Churchill, he said Islam in a man is like rabies in a dog.
Great, well thanks very much, Tommy.